They had as their mission to create a new international economic order. They called it Agenda 21, designed to capture the resources of the world for a small global elite group. This was phase one. We're probably in phase 4 right now. They're telling us what they're going to do, but nobody thinks beyond the end of their nose what this means. People that could have had something to do to push back on this, but they didn't do it. Doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican in America, always had their man or women in the system mixing it up. And this is happening, and nobody's being alarmed about this. These scientists and engineers got together and they thought, you know, we've got a problem here. Capitalism looks like it's dead. And they figured that this was an engineering problem. So they set about creating an alternative economic system that wasn't a price-based economic system, not based on free market economics. It was based on resource allocation, resource administration, and it was to be controlled by energy. In other words, whereas in a price-based economic system, money is the fluid, the lifeblood of the economic system.
Only on Johnny Bigger.
To their system, they proposed that energy would be the lifeblood of the system. It would be the monetary accounting system. But it wasn't price-based. They simply wanted to allocate goods and services according to the amount of energy that went into them and that it consumed. It was called technocracy. And the original leaders, founders, whatever, they set out on their own, created an organization called Technocracy Incorporated. It was a membership organization, and they found popularity all across North America, especially in the West and United States, but also in Canada. It was huge in Canada. And every province had its own leader of the technocracy movement. And then there was one overlord in Canada that kind of oversaw the entire thing. But that's kind of where this started. It was an economic system to replace capitalism and free enterprise. There had never in the history of the world
on Johnny Bigger
been another alternative economic system that was created like this. There's nothing. You can go back and search and look and ask historians, but there's never been anything like this that was created from scratch. There was no need for politicians in such a system, that they were expendable. They said, get rid of the politicians, we don't need any of them. We can control the whole kit and caboodle from an economic point of view. And if we do that, then you'll have no need for any politicians. They had as their mission to create a new international economic order. That was their phrase. So they called it sustainable development. They called it Agenda 21. They called it other things since, natural capitalism. They call it green economy. They've got all kinds of synonyms, but it's the same old garbage coming straight out of the 1930s, designed to capture the resources of the world for a small global elite group to control, and they will be the ones that tap into this resource pool to make things for the rest of the world to consume. And it's not just that they made a lot of money. They began to use their money for social control, for social projects and stuff, where they would try and control society to get people to do things they wanted them to do. Well, it's a small membership organization. You don't have an application to join, by the way. They pick you
Johnny Bigger
by executive committee. In other words, they look for people that will achieve their goals, and they go out and tap people, kind of like a fraternity would do at university, you know, where they watch you and then they come out and they tap you on the shoulder and say, come with us, and they put you through the rush. But all of those people were chosen out of certain fields. There was some media giants involved. There was politicians, high-level politicians around the world. A lot of banks were involved as well. So it was kind of a mix of people, but collectively it was a group. They had their fingers kind of into all different areas in society, from banking to manufacturing. This was phase 1. We're probably in phase 4 right now, but phase 1 was to get control of the global economic system. And how they did that, they basically took over the United States government. It was a complete takeover. And initially, people got upset because, oh my gosh, the United States is being taken over. You know, our political system is being taken over. However,
Johnny Bigger.
People in the commission repeatedly told us they're not interested in a political system. They're not interested in politics. And I'm convinced now they were not interested in politics, even though they took over the United States government, the whole cotton picking thing. Well, what they were after was the economic engine that the United States government drove the world with. We were the most important, the most powerful, the most influential economic entity on the entire planet. They knew if they could get a hold of the United States government, they would be able to control economic policy. And they used these positions to further their economic goals of creating a new international economic order. This is exactly what we see today, hiding behind their computer models. Do they have any qualifications to run society politically for the good of people? No, they don't. But they do it anyway. And somehow they've gotten away with it all these years. But the academics were the ones that kind of drove this through different political persuasions. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican in America. The Trilateral Commission always had their man or their men or women in the system mixing it up. Most people don't listen. Most of the citizenry that we've addressed don't listen. And heaven knows the government don't listen. They all have their own agenda. And they're afraid to buck the big guys. I've bumped into this so many times over the years, I just boggles my mind. Where sit down and talk to people and explain it to them, and they will agree with you 100%. Oh man, it's right on the money. We see what's going on. It's just, yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, something needs to be done about it. And the minute they walk away,
Only on Johnny Bigger.
They just do nothing. They're afraid to do anything because they don't want to buck the man. They're afraid of these people, and so they just don't say anything. I think this is kind of a cultural thing. It's just the way people are. People that could have had something to do to push back on this, but they didn't do it. Does anybody think that the people, the global elite running this whole thing, who are rich beyond their wildest imagination, are going to give up one nickel of their wealth to help you or me or anybody else in society, much less the poor? No way. They want to have all of the resources. So when they trick people into thinking we're going to redistribute the wealth here, no, they're not. They're going to redistribute it towards themselves. You just don't understand what the context of what they're talking about. It's about getting it redistributed from you to them, of free market economics on a global basis. They want to crush it everywhere. And this is the goal of the Great Reset. The Great Reset, by definition, if you think about it, you cannot have a reset unless there's some vacuum that happened before you push the button. You can't rebuild something unless the first thing has been destroyed. All of this craziness has been rolled over into the Great Reset to just flatten the economic system of the world so that sustainable development can rise out. We will have no autonomy whatsoever as people if these people get their way. There will be no autonomy. Property rights are going out the door. All of Western civilization is based on property rights, the ability for people to own individual property, whether it's the clothes on your back or the diamond ring on your finger or the house that you live in, or maybe you've got a little farm or a little business somewhere, or maybe you have an apartment building. They don't want anybody to own property. Whoa, that's radical. And then they try and tell us, well, it's actually cool not to own property. You don't have to worry about paying the taxes, or whatever. But, oh, wait a minute. So if we, the citizens, don't own the property, but there is property because we're living in it, well, who owns the property then?
Only on Johnny Bigger.
Oh, somebody has to own it? Yeah. And they're saying to themselves, we own it. We will charge you rent. for the property that we own, but you don't have to own anything, and that's a good thing for you. They say, now is the time for people, citizens, to take to the street. Not to harm anybody, but now is the time for citizens who understand what's going on to take to the street to message other citizens on what's going on, to bring them out of the fog of deception. This is the mentality that this crowd across the top layer of this global elite, this is their mentality by and large. They can't conceive how anybody would ever be disappointed with them. And nobody has really ever challenged them. That's part of the problem. They're so far removed in their ivory towers of academia and flying their private jets and their castles and their mansions and their whatever. They don't have any contact with real people, and they just operate in a vacuum. And nobody's ever really confronted them to say, you people, get out of here. Now it's time to make known to them that we will not accept any longer. We've discovered them, we've exposed them, the American people, the European people, the British people, the African people, the Indian people, South American, the Brazilian people. We need to stand up in bulk at this point and say, you people, get out. We don't want you here. Get out of our system. Get out of our public policy arena. You do not belong here anymore.